Hey there, folks. Happy November 5th. Hope you're having a good election day. Staying calm, staying chill. Maybe some ukulele therapy for tonight. Yeah, we're working on a Bob Dylan tune called "The Times They Are Changin'." I thought it might be a little bit, a little bit hopeful, I guess. It's a fun revolution tune. Not a ton to worry about in this tune regarding left hand shapes or right hand, right? Even the rhythm is it's pretty straightforward, fairly straightforward. Really, what we want to try and create when we're learning this rhythm is learning how to accent, right? Remember, accents when we're discussing rhythm are really about having moments where we play a little bit louder, right? So if I'm playing three strums in a row, 1, 2, 3, if I play them all at an even kind of intensity, if I play them all at an even volume, then what happens is it's a little bit flat, right? But if I put a little bit of an accent on the first beat, now what happens is there's a little bit of a mark, right? You're marking where that first beat of the measure hits. It's giving you a little bit more energy. It's giving you a little bit more of a roadmap so that my ear can kind of follow along and hear where that rhythmic pattern resets, right? Super simple. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now you can actually make that accent a little bit more exaggerated if you play the other strums a little bit lighter. So not only am I strumming down harder on beat 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, I'm also playing a little bit softer on beat 2 and 3. So name of the game in this piece is obviously learning the chord progressions and learning the rhythms, but really we want to try to learn how to make that rhythm dance a little bit. And then obviously incorporating all of the skills that go on top of that with, flowing through the progressions, the rhythmic patterns, combining those two things, and then learning how to sing and play. There's not really a riff section for this tune. So yeah, fairly straightforward song, very long and lengthy. And I would say, in more of that stanza kind of format, right? Instead of thinking like verse, chorus, song structure, which is what a lot of music follows. This is more of like a stanza, kind of a long verses. It's almost like, chapter 1, chapter 2, and the progressions are definitely longer and they flow a little bit more. But once that idea ends, then what happens is it just repeats over and over again. I like to call these songs kind of more stanza side format, a very like traditional way to approach folk music. A traditional approach in folk music where we're thinking about more of these like stanzas, right? We're singing the first big long kind of thing. It ends its story, or it ends its idea, and then it moves on to the next one where you're repeating that same big long stanza. Okay, cool. Let's start off with chord shapes today. First chord we need to know is a G chord. 0, 2, 3, and 2, just like this. Now, the one thing about this chord shape is that if you're looking to experiment a little bit, you might move into a bar version of this, where I'm barring across the bottom 3 strings. My middle finger is on the E string 3rd fret, just like this, right? But for most people, we're going to be going into this version of G. Now the next chord shape is actually an E minor. Now the full form of this is 0, 4, 3, and 2, right? 0, 4, 3, and 2. Now, if you're looking for a little bit of an easier change, then what you can do is play what's called an E minor 7, which is 0, 2, 0, and 2. Now, what's really great about this is because we move from G to E minor so much in this tune, if you just lift your ring finger right here, see how I pick up my ring finger and I've immediately got my chord shape. There's G, and there's E minor 7. For the rest of this class, we're actually going to be using that form of the E minor, and then when we get into a little bit more of a challenge, looking into the intermediate arrangement next week, we'll start to incorporate that other one. But again, if this is a chord shape that you're familiar with, or even if it's easier for you to play, then you might choose that full shape of the E minor, which is 0, 4, 3, and 2. Totally up to you. All right. Next chord we need is a C, 0, 0, 0, and 3. Cool. Chord shape we all should know. Ring finger 3rd fret on the A string. And then the last chord shape we need is a D, 2, 2, 2, and 0. Now, again, here is another form in the beginner arrangement where I'm actually using this 2-finger D. That's used a lot in Hawaiian music. It's sometimes called a Hawaiian D7. 0 or 2, 0, 2, and 0. Here's the D7 that you can use as a substitution if moving to this D chord is giving you a little bit of a challenge. Even more so if it's not giving you a challenge, I actually really like the voicing. I like the way it sounds. Gather around people wherever you roam. I'm sorry. Gather around people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown. See, it's a great sounding voicing, and what's really cool about it, it's actually a mirror image or a chord twin to this E minor 7, right? 0, 2, 0, and 2. If I hop that shape up by 1 floor in the building, so I have 2, 0, 2, 0, then I've got that version of D, that Hawaiian D7, right? Okay, cool. Let's try whole notes moving between those chords. Remember, we're going to be using the easy versions of the chords for this class. 1, 2, whole notes. Here we go. Here's a G, 2, and ready. E minor 7, or E minor, right? And then ring finger, 3rd fret. And now let's go to that 2-finger D, 2, 0, 2, 0. And remember, your hand might remember that shape, right? There's the G. If I lift my ring finger, then I've got E minor. Good. Then I put my ring finger down, I've got C. And even if you can have that little memory from that shape a second ago, you can just transpose it onto the G and E strings, and you've got your D7. One more time. G, 2, and ready. Ring finger off for E minor. 2, and ready. Show me ring finger. Here we go. And then we move to the D. Beautiful. And let's end on G here. Nicely done. Cool. Let's check out some handout stuff. Just want to show those chord shapes. Now, I didn't really present that E minor in this version, but remember, if you want to work on it there, that's really what the shape looks like. And in the intermediate handout, you'll find that shape as well. Cool. All right, so here is the G chord. Here, 0, 2, 3, and 2. And remember, if we want a little bit of a challenge, we can present that bar across the 2nd fret. We've got our E minor 7, or our E minor chord, our substitution there. And then here, we've got the 3-finger version of D, right? 2, 2, 2, 0. But if you're looking for an easier version, you can kind of take out that red dot there. And then you've got 2, 0, 2, and 0 for your D. And then last chord shape here is your C. Cool? All right. Not too much to think about here. Again, this song is not really, the big challenge isn't really in, well, what the left hand is doing. It's really trying to gain some fluidity. Now, the thing about these chord progression, let's just take a look at the chord progression. It's long, right? There are a lot of chords to memorize here. But the one thing you'll notice is that for this first line here, that it actually presents the same way every time, right? We play G, we play E minor, then we play C. And that happens for all 3 of these little stanzas, right? It's kind of a nice thing to know is that the tune is always starting the same, or the line is always starting the same. Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. Cool? So remember, those first 3 lines, they all start the same way, but they finish a little bit differently. Cool? Now, one thing you'll notice is kind of this odd meter, this odd timing, and that's just classic Bob Dylan. Doesn't know how many chord measures he's playing, just kind of freestyling what he's doing in terms of his counts. So you'll notice that the first one has 5, the second one has 4, the third one has 5, 4, 4, and then 5 to finish, right? So just really, I try to think about these progressions more about connecting with how they sound, right? If you connect with how they sound versus trying to count, then what ends up happening is you have a little stronger connection to the actual thing we're trying to pull off, right? Which is connect sound with movement, right? How many times do we do that strum pattern? Cool. Again, you'll get a feel for this, but what I really want you to try and think about this month is trying to hear, how the line really kind of the melodic line really dictates whether or not I'm going to hold the chord, right? Come gather around, people, wherever you roam. You feel how there's like a little bit of a drawn out moment there on the first one. The second one is a little bit faster into the turn on the next line. And admit that the waters around you have grown. And then straight in. Except that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. And here, kind of hanging, right? So pay attention to that. You really want to try and memorize the feeling of the first one being longer, the second one being shorter, the third one being longer, right? If you can get that into your ear, then what happens is we're connecting with a little more direct line to the actual resource, or the actual audio reference, right? The actual tune itself. Cool. Let's go ahead and flow through this. And this song is in 3/4, so that basically means that we're going to have 3 counts per measure, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, since there's 2 measures here, we've got 6 counts, or we've got 2 counts of 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Then the next one, that the waters, a C, 2, 3, and now we go to the D. Cool? Let's try it. Whole notes are dotted halves if you want to be exact about it, but here we're holding each of these chord letters for 3 counts. 1, 2, 3, G, 2, 3, E minor, 2, 3, and C, 2, 3, G, 2, 3, G. And admit that E minor, and to C, and then D, and a dun dun, E minor, ba-dum, ba-dum, to G, ba-dum, 2 measures, right? And dun dun, and now we get introduced to our last chord here. Oh, and I'm realizing I have to make an edit. I got to make an edit to these. A minor chord, even though I don't have it on the sheet, super simple chord, 2, 0, 0, and 0. Cool, so there are actually 5 chords in this. I'm going to make an edit, make sure I update it. You guys know I'm a little bit behind on materials this month. Sorry about that. My little one had her 8th birthday over the weekend, and I feel like I had like 3 birthday parties. It was crazy. So I was running around, did not have very much time to catch up and be ready for this month. But stuff will be done by this week. We'll have the updated handouts, and they will be available for download on the website. Cool. All right, so our A minor chord here. And remember, this A minor kind of gets substituted for the E minor that we've been playing this whole time, right? So here on the second line, in our 4th sort of rotation of chords, we've got G, A minor, and then D, and twice, right? Cool? So remember, that's what's happening on the 4th one. And now what we've got is a D chord for 4 measures. Cool? So then what we do is we get to the last line, which is really the turn, right? So we go, times they are a-changin'. Cool. So let's see if we can give it a try. I'll try and kind of hum and sing a little bit of the melody just so you can hear how that connects. 1, 2, 3, ready, and go. G, 2, 3, E minor, and wherever you roam. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Next line. And E minor, then to C and to D. Beautiful. Third one. Dun, 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 dun. Then I'll be drenched to the bone. 2 measures of G. And now we go G, A minor. Third. Dun, dun, dun. And then to D. Dun, dun. Now we got 4 measures. Better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone. Last one. Times they are changing. Cool. All right, so pretty straightforward. Again, I don't really think it's hard, but obviously it can feel like a lot to memorize, right? If we think about our chord progressions being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 plus 10, then we can think of like a 27 measure progression. Then it feels a little bit intimidating. But again, if we can find these connecting points, obviously they all start with G, except for the 5th one, right? And then they all start with G, E minor, and C for those first 3, right? So if you can find these connecting points, it's really, really helpful if you can find these like kind of patterns and know how you switch in between them. Cool. All right, let's see if we can give it one more rotation. And then I want to talk about how these connect with the lines here. So I've kind of broken these down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, right? And if you look in our grouping for the chord progression, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the reason I kind of wrote it this way is because it's super helpful to think about it as connecting each cycle or each like kind of group for each line, right? So if I have line 1 here, that means I'm playing that. If I have line 2 here, I'm playing that. Line 3 here, then I'm playing that, right? And so it's super helpful to be moving through this, and then you can kind of feel each of those lines as a separate chunk, even though the one's 5 measures long and one's 4 measures long. Cool? All right, let's throw the lyrics up there, and let's see if we can try around moving through the chord progression with dotted half notes or whole notes. 1, 2, 3, ready, here we go. Gather around, people, wherever you roam. 2 measures of G, and admit that E minor water around you have grown, and accept it that soon you're drenched to the bone. So you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. Let's switch views here, get ourselves up, and try it one more time. 1, 2, 3, ready. Come gather around, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. Good. If your time, there were 2 G's there. If your time to you is worth saving, 2 measures on D, and you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. Cool. There is our rotation. All right, if there are no questions, which I know they're not because it's just me, we can get into the rhythm. So rhythm's super straightforward for our first line. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at it first. So here in the beginner handout, you'll see our rhythm is kind of broken into 2 parts. What I really want to show you is that the main rhythm is the black arrows, and then the red arrow on the and of 2, that upstrum is going to be sort of our variant. Now, all of the rhythms, the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced, are going to have this sort of format. It's like the main rhythm is really just these 3 quarter notes, right? Just playing down strums on 1, 2, and 3. And then we have these sort of second variants to fill in. Now, the way that I wrote most of the arrangements is that I really only do those variants at the end of each line, right? And remember, the line is this area, right? Like if we think about these groupings as one line, then really I would be playing it here, I would be playing it here, I would be playing it here, and that is specific to the arrangement. Now, I don't want you to treat it that way, that that's the only place you can do it, but if you're looking for a place to start to add that little 8th note variant, then that's a great place to do it. It does build a lot of contrast when you kind of stabilize it with this really steady, and then you fill it in with 1, 2, 3, right? Then you kind of really hear that. If you hear just that moment, what happens is it stands out a little bit more. It gives it, what's the word I'm looking for? It like means more, right? It has more value because it only happens once in a while. If I kind of overdo it, then what ends up happening is my rhythm actually turns into that rhythm, right? And that's fine, totally works. But you don't really have that really strong contrast, which I think is really important, especially for simple rhythms, to develop contrast, to develop texture in your playing. So, yeah. All right, cool. Let's get into a little bit of that rhythm. Oh, let's talk about one more thing, and you'll notice that this beat on 1 is a little bit darker. I know that might be hard to see. I think the next time I do this, I might have to draw this a little bit more different. But anyway, this is heavier, this is bolder. So that means that the accent is here on beat 1. And remember, you can create a stronger accent there, and you can also play these just a little bit lighter. Cool? All right, so let's see if we can just try it. Super simple. Down strums, 3 beats, and then the accent is on 1, right? So it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. 1. Super simple. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. 2 more times. And let's finish on 1. Beautiful. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that to get my sort of under emphasis or my non-accent, right? If I'm playing a strong beat across 1, I'm playing across all 4 strings. If I'm playing a softer beat on 2 and 3, then what I can do is sort of target a little bit higher on the strings, and it's almost like I don't play a full strum. See how here I'm kind of hitting the C string sometimes, maybe the G C, maybe the G C and E, right? If I do that, then what happens is I get this little contrast in sound, right? I get a little bit of difference in intensity. That can be really, really helpful for making your rhythm move a little bit, right? Again, if I play all of those at the same volume, at the same intensity, it sounds a lot flatter, right? It doesn't quite have the texture that we're looking for. So remember, strong on beat 1, and then a little bit softer on beats 2 and 3. And remember, if I can get this little mini strum or half strum with beats 2 and 3, then it'll make my accents stand out even more. Nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Down, strong, accent, hard, light, light. Just like that. Nice. I want to talk about one more thing, and that's how you achieve this accent. Let me back up a little bit. The first thing I want to mention is that really this song moves at a pretty quick clip. Obviously, when you're first learning it, you want to move slowly so that way you can make your transitions and still stay in tempo. But do remember that the actual song itself is. Let's listen to it for a second. The actual song itself is pretty quick. Ba 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 da 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 1, 2, and 3. You hear how when I play say 2 and 3, it's actually a pretty quick clip. 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. So that means that if I'm going to include that up strum, I have to move that quickly. Down up down, down up down, down up down. It's not a slow rhythm, but remember, from the majority of what you're doing, you're just going to be doing quarter notes. So what you really want to think about is small movements, right? I don't want this big. I'm going to get exhausted doing that, first of all. And second of all, it's going to be really hard for me to move quickly. Anytime you're trying to increase speed, what you want to think about is actually increasing lightness. And when I say lightness, I mean like your touch, how hard you strum the strings. So think like you want a light touch so your hand almost bounces. It moves at this quick little tempo. And that also means kind of reducing the size of your strum. You don't make it this big, giant, wide strum. You actually shrink the distance so that the effective range of your strum is really only across the strings. And if you're doing those under accents on beats 2 and 3, then the effective range is even smaller, right? So watch my hand. See how little I move? Now, one way you can create accents is to do a little more than just this elbow move. You can do a little snap. See how my wrist turns a little to get a stronger hit? You can also engage your finger. See how if I engage my finger or turn my wrist, what'll happen is I'll get a little bit of louder sound, I'll get a little bit more pop, but it doesn't mean I have to create this big wide movement that's gonna throw my timing off, right? So always remember that if you wanna make small movements, what you can do is incorporate your wrist a little more, or your finger a little more to get a little more snap and get that stronger beat on beat 1. So let's try quarter notes again, 3 quarter notes, accent on 1, and let's see if we can incorporate a little bit of that twist or a little bit of my finger kind of going across strings. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, snap, 2, 3. Use your finger. See how on beats 2 and 3, I don't use as much of that wrist twist. But when I do use that wrist twist, what happens is I create that little bit of accent. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's slow down a little bit. 1, 2, 3. All right, now from here, what I want to do is actually incorporate an upstrum. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now, just because I do this extra upstrum doesn't mean I want to forget about all of those other elements that I've been talking about, right? Accent on beat 1, under emphasis on 2 and 3. So make sure you're incorporating all of those things when you're working on this too. 1, 2, and 3. Strong. Da, da, da. 1. Remember, the smaller you move, the faster you can go. The lighter your touch, the more bounce you have, the faster you can go. 1, 2, and 3. Let's pick it up. 1, 2, and 3. Ba, 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 ba. 1, 2, and 3. And accent. And da. And 1, 2, and 3. So this is about where we want to be for the tune, right? Alright, let's try a G chord. G. Let's try an E minor. Let's try C. And let's try a D7 or a D. Nice. One more time. Show me E minor by lifting your ring finger. Show me C by putting our ring finger down. And then 2-0-2-0 for our D. Beautiful. And let's end on G. Now remember, chord progression, G, E, C, and then back to G for our first rotation. Let's see if we can combine the right hand with just that first line of the progression. 1, 2, 3. Ready, and go. G. Sorry, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. Ready, and go. G, E minor, C, and back to G. Nice. One more time. G, lift the ring finger, C, and G. Now that I've got the chords, you'll kind of notice G, E minor. Now when I make the changes, it gives me a little bit of a marker for when to hit those accents, right? Here we go. G, E minor, and C, back to G. Beautiful. Last time, here we go. And G, lift the ring finger, and C, back to G. Beautiful. So if I was going to follow the arrangement, then what I would do is on my last measure of G for that first rotation, I would try to put the upstrum in. So it sounds like G, E minor, all quarter notes, and then here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Gives you a little bit of like a pickup into the next rotation. Let's see if we can try that in a loop. 1, 2, 3, ready, here we go. G, lift the ring finger, C, back to G. And we change rhythms. 1, 2, and 3. Start over. C, back to G. And other rhythm. And back to it. Lift the ring finger and C, back to G. 1, 2, 3. Change the rhythm. Last time. E minor, C, and then G. Now, again, just because the arrangement says that you do that at the end of every line, I do want you to know that the eventual goal is to treat this as a variant, something that you can kind of throw in whenever you feel like it. Now, what you'll notice is that at first you just sort of had to jam it in there. And if you're only practicing it once every 4 measures or 5 measures, you might not get enough practice. So one thing that you can do is just practice alternating between those two. You don't even need to include the left hand. So that exercise, maybe, you could start every practice with this exercise. You could create some sort of, routine around being able to expose yourself to this, because then what really happens is that second, both these rhythms kind of become a tool in your tool belt, right? You can use both of these rhythms to express yourself. So at any moment you want to incorporate that up strum in between 2 and 3, you can. And any moment you want it to sound a little bit more straight, then you can do that too. Cool? So the exercise would be super simple. Just 3/4 notes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Don't forget about your accents on every measure. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Accent up strum. Good. Quarter notes. Eighth note there. Bum, 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 bum. And remember, you can add the left hand. Any of those chord shapes that you want. Okay, cool. I think that is going to be it for this week. I'm going to post this video the same way I normally do when we have a live class. Just a couple things to note in terms of logistics. I'm going to be taking the week of Thanksgiving for travel, so I'm actually going to pre-record week 4 classes this month. So just be aware of that on the week of Thanksgiving, we're actually not going to be meeting live in the Zoom room. I'm going to try to record it the weekend before I take off. So thanks, guys. I hope you have a good week, and we'll see each other next time. Bye-bye.